Ministry of External Affairs. I would request Secretary ER to make his opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Vasu, and good afternoon, everyone. As all of you know, the BRICS Foreign Ministers meeting under India's chairship was held from 14 to 15 May at Bharat Mandapam with the participation of foreign ministers and heads of delegations of BRIC members and partner countries. Prior to the foreign ministers meeting, BRICS Sherpa also met from 11 to 13 May to prepare for the foreign ministers meeting. The BRICS members and partner countries, ministers and heads of delegation had the opportunity to call on Honorable Prime Minister yesterday. There were also a number of bilateral engagements among the ministers as well during the course of 2-day-long foreign ministers meeting. EAM hosted a dinner for the visiting ministers and delegations where they were also given a glimpse of Indian culture. During the course of 2-day foreign ministers meeting, discussion took place around three broader themes: global and regional matters, reform of global governance and multilateral system, and BRICS at 20 under the theme Building for Resilience, Innovation, Cooperation and Sustainability. These three sessions allowed members to exchange views and share perspectives on main pillars of BRICS strategic partnership, political and security, economic and financial, and cultural and people-to-people relations. The session on the theme BRICS at 20 allowed members to reflect on the evolution of the grouping in the last 2 decades and its growing relevance in addressing contemporary global challenges. Ministers also reflected on the nature of the cooperation under BRICS during India's chairship this year under the theme Building for Resilience, Innovation, Cooperation and Sustainability, as well as the future direction of the grouping. During the session on reforms of global governance and multilateral systems, ministers underscored the need for a reformed multilateralism and that continued delay carries a high cost. Ministers were of the view that multilateral system does not reflect the current global realities and it is critical to respond to the needs and aspirations of countries in the global south. In the session on global and regional matters, members exchanged views and perspectives on the current geopolitical challenges, including their impact on the global economy. I would like to underline that foreign ministers meeting took place in the backdrop of productive engagement and a number of technical level meetings across thematic sectors of BRICS collaboration during our chairship. We have hosted so far as chair since January this year over 100 meetings, both in virtual and in-person mode. These meetings covered areas such as agriculture, climate, environment, energy, health, ICT, science and technology, labor, tourism, youth affairs, disaster risk reduction, industry and finance. All the BRICS members and partner countries were very appreciative and supportive of India's chairship priorities on the theme Building for Resilience, Innovation, Cooperation and Sustainability. Building on this deliberation in the last 2 days and based on these discussions, we have issued as chair statement and outcome document. It captures the common position of BRICS members on almost all the subjects under the three pillars of BRICS strategic partnership, to which I alluded to in my earlier part of the comments. The outcome documents cover common position on BRICS cooperation in areas such as global and regional matters, reform of the institution of global governance, including reforms of the UN Security Council, international financial institutions, fight against terrorism, trade, industry, finance, artificial intelligence, energy security, climate, biodiversity, and sustainability, health, and enhancing agriculture productivity and ensuring global food security and nutrition, supply chain resilience, disaster risk reduction, and of course, people-to-people exchanges, which is also a very key priority for our chairship. As you are all aware, the world today is navigating a period of unprecedented geopolitical and economic uncertainty, ongoing conflicts, economic volatility, climate-related risks, advancement in technology and associated disruption, supply chain challenges and disruptions are reshaping the global landscape. All these matters are also interlinked and have consequences for BRICS members, and I would say also for countries in the global south. there was a common view that BRICS must work purposefully in seeking common grounds for achieving practical, actionable, inclusive, and development-oriented solutions through sustained engagement. I'm sure all of you have seen the statement made by Honorable EAM in the three plenary session, so I would not like to go into the detail of what we have said in this meeting, in these sessions. With these words, Vasu, I would be happy to respond to any question that my colleagues from media may have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would request all of you to raise your hands and introduce yourself and your outlet for the record for asking a question. We'll start with Siddhant.
I think, sir, we all have one common question. The fact that there was no joint statement and UAE and Iran have been publicly sparring over it. So what's India's position on that?
Reza at the back.
Related question, Reza from Hindustan Times. There was a press conference by the Iranian foreign minister a little while ago, and he gave the impression that the UAE was the only country that held up consensus on a joint statement. I was wondering if we could have some more light on that, and whether India is hopeful of being able to reach consensus on this before the summit.
Manish.
So Manish Chand, India Rights Network. We heard of very strong, exchange of, views, rhetoric between the foreign ministers of Iran and UAE. Now, I also want to know what was the position of the other BRICS members, like new members especially. Say, for example, Egypt, Ethiopia. And he just spoke about the US only country holding up consensus. Is that true? Or there were dissenting notes within that overall? And what is India's strategy to navigate these differences going forward? Thank you.
Ayushi.
So this is Ayushi Iqbal from ANI. So what is India's response to expectations from Iran that New Delhi take a more proactive diplomatic role in this de-escalation efforts? Thank you.
So, yes.
Well, thank you very much for these questions. I think on the first question about the result of this meeting, as I mentioned to you, we have an outcome document which we have posted online, which has 63 paragraphs. And if you look at that paragraph, as chair, it is our responsibility to make sure that we facilitate dialogue and discussion among all the members on all issues that are before BRICS at this stage. And I'm happy to share that almost in all matters that we are discussing under the three verticals of BRICS strategic partnership, political and security, economic and finance, cultural and P2P relations, we could find common grounds among all members. So the fact that we have a good outcome document with those understandings across thematic sectors on issues of global governance, on agriculture, health, UNSC, terrorism. So I would say that that we have had a very productive week for BRICS through BRICS Foreign Ministers meeting and the exchanges that took place in the last 2 days. And the outcome document, as I mentioned earlier, reflects the common position of members almost on all subjects, and that is very positive to us. Now, I'm sure some of you would have already read this outcome document, from the reform of global economic governance to the condemnation of terrorism in all its form, from combating climate change, pandemics, and disaster to recognizing the human-centric approach to artificial intelligence, from promoting deeper engagement among startups and SMEs to enhancing cooperation on digital public infrastructure for economic growth. All in all, I would say BRICS foreign ministers articulated their support for the practical cooperation in various domains across three pillars of peace and security, economic and finance, cultural and people-to-people exchanges. So I would say that I would request everyone to study this document very carefully, and I feel that it provides us a very good sort of basis for our preparation for the summit that is going to happen in the second half of this year. I would like to also say that there are more than 20 thematic ministerial tracks, from agriculture to health to trade to finance to labor and employment, culture. And all these ministerial meetings will start happening in the coming days and weeks. And the result of all these meetings will feed into the summit preparations. So the fact that we have an outcome document with common views of BRIC members on almost all issues, I think is, in my view, a very positive outcome of this meeting. And we would be engaging with all the BRIC members and partner countries going forward, build consensus wherever we can. And I'm very confident that we would have good engagement and consultations in the run-up to summit in the second half of this year. On the issue of the situation in the West Asia, to which Manishji mentioned, I would say that that there were frank and candid sharing of assessments and national positions by members, by all members, BRIC members. It is a fact that there were differing views among some members as regard the situation in West Asia. BRICS members, as I mentioned earlier, shared their respective national positions and shared a range of perspectives on this matter. Views articulated by them also included the need for an early resolution of the current crisis, the value of dialogue and diplomacy, respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity, upholding international law, the importance of safe and unimpeded flow of maritime commerce through international waterways, and the protection of civilian infrastructure and civilian lives. There was also a discussion by members, since you asked me the perspective of other members, there was a discussion, a good discussion, I would say, on the consequences of the situation on global economy. And this was stressed by several members in the discussion. So, as I mentioned, as chairs, our responsibility is to facilitate dialogue and discussion among members, build consensus wherever we can, and we manage to build consensus almost on all issues. And that is why we have an outcome document which we have transparently shared with all of you. And we will continue to, as I said, as chair, continue to engage through Sherpa channel with other countries, and continue to engage and find common grounds. I think Ayushi had asked a question which is not really BRICS related, but something different. So I think I'll defer that question for the time being. Thank you.
I would request all of you to restrict your questions to the BRICS foreign ministers meeting, given the context of this press briefing. Sudhi at the back.
Thank you. Sir, Sudhi Ranjan from Bloomberg, sir, here. Sir, generally wanted an understanding. We see two dissent notes, one on Bab el-Mandeb and one also on Palestine. If you could give us an understanding which are the countries which had a problem with this and what exactly was their position.
Sridhar?
So, talking about these two paragraphs Shruti just spoke about, why would anyone oppose navigation through Bab el-Mandeb, and also on the Palestinian issue, one would presume that all of them are on the same page. And also the fact that India could not evolve a consensus on all issues. Does it make it very difficult for a complete consensus for the leaders summit? And just one final thing, if I could just sneak it in, right after UAE was a participant and the PM just went to the UAE. So are we to presume that we have sort of reconciled to the fact that we have to throw in our lot with one one part of the divide and so on? Thanks.
Kallol?
Sir, Kallol from The Hindu. Sir, considering that the language on Palestine in the BRICS chair statement and the outcome document is very clear. It calls for the creation of the Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. Considering the fact that the Prime Minister of India visited Israel just 2.5 months ago, and considering the close relation that we have with Israel, is this indicative of a shift in India's policy towards the region, or is it somehow rooted in some sort of historical continuity? Because we have not seen that sort of categorical statement on the creation of the Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital in quite some time from the government of India.
Keshav?
So, thank you, Secretary. Keshav Padmanabhan from The Print. Just on paragraph 26, which is where you have the dissent on Palestine, was the issue with regards to supporting the Palestinian Authority for their reforms? Or was it rather on the occupation of Gaza Strip and that's an inalienable right to Palestine? Which part of that paragraph was a problem? And if I may, paragraph 42 talks about the multilateral trading system and issues with tariffs based on climate change initiatives, which, to the best of my knowledge, refers to CBAM and such measures, as well as unilateral tariffs. So can you give us a sense of what was the discussion on this, and whether the BRICS members had any sense of how to collectively respond to such measures that have been, taken in the recent past by certain organizations and countries?
Well, thank you very much. I think I'll start with the last question, perhaps, about the discussion and references to economic matters, particularly the unilateral measures or positions or regulation that country may have related to trade or trade-related aspect. You mentioned climate in this case. So, Minister did really exchange views on global economic outlook, including concerns regarding unilateral measures and their disproportionate impact on developing countries. Now, I would like to also mention here that that this discussion was guided by BRICS' long-standing commitment, BRIC as a grouping, to a rule-based, non-discriminatory, transparent and inclusive multilateral trading system with WTO at its core. So to answer your question, yes, there was a discussion on such measures, and there are 2 or 3 paragraphs actually regarding this matter. As chair of the BRICS currently, our focus would remain going forward in building collaboration, cooperation, strengthening supply chain resilience, and also supporting the reform of the multilateral trading system. There's also a discussion on what happened in the recently concluded WTO Ministerial Conference in Cameroon and the reform of WTO and how all of us can work together to pursue the interest of countries in the global south. There were questions about the fact that since we have no full consensus, I would say, on one aspect of the BRICS collaboration, which is para 22 here, the situation in the Middle East, how will it impact the summit preparation? As I mentioned earlier, we have to see the outcome document in totality. The fact that we have common views of BRICS members on almost all the matters that we are discussing under the 3 verticals: political and security, economic and trade, and finance, cultural and people-to-people relations, to my mind and to our mind as chair, is very, very positive. And it, as I said earlier, it provides us a very good basis actually to pursue discussion and dialogue through various channels of communication we have under BRICS. We do meet as BRICS Sherpa virtually also regularly, apart from having in-person meeting. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have a number of ministerial tracks, and many ministerial tracks are having meetings of working group. For example, health working group has 9, health ministerial track has 9 working groups ranging on different topics of interest to BRIC members. And I'm very confident that through discussions in the next few weeks and months in the run-up to summit, they will result into concrete deliverables and outcomes. And all this will come into play in terms of the preparations for the Leaders Summit in the second half of this year. And I'm very, very optimistic and confident that we will, through our dialogue and discussion, we will be able to build consensus on all these aspects for the summit. Finally, there were questions about 2 paragraphs in the declaration, in the outcome document, regarding some regional matters. As I mentioned earlier to you, as chair, it is our responsibility to make sure that we reflect the views of members in a very transparent and objective manner as possible. And we have done that in the outcome document. And if you look at these paragraphs, these two paragraphs which you mentioned, these paragraphs relate to, are specific to a region, and you know what region I'm talking about, in which one of the members from the region had a differing perspective on few elements, and it is our duty to make sure that we respect that view, and hence this footnote. But going forward, as I said, we will continue to engage on these matters and make sure that we can find common grounds on these 1.5 issues that we have remaining in the outcome document. Finally, you are very right that we do have paragraphs regarding regarding Palestine. I think BRICS has had a very coherent and clear view on matters relating to Palestine. If you look at the previous declaration, Rio Declaration, also we had a common view, and I'm happy that members and ministers could discuss these matters again in a very candid manner and could articulate that common view again. So I don't see this as a departure, perhaps, to my mind, but as a reflection of BRICS countries making sure that they have a view and they are willing to express that view collectively. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we come to an end